So, Andy, thanks for coming back on. Where do we find you this time around? A few weeks since you were last with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me back on, Jamie. Again, this situation is still rumbling on at Reading. The latest development we've had last week is that the EFL deadline for the club to be sold has now been extended. So the original date was April 22nd. That's now been extended to May the 5th. And the club announced that Dayong has now agreed terms on a deal with an unnamed party, which is believed to be former Wickham chairman Rob Couhig. Probably the worst kept secret in football at the moment. Everyone knows the identity of that party. So now we're just in a situation where we need the final negotiation to take place and everything to be signed. We've been in this situation before with Rob Couhig. We know how unreliable Mr. Dye is. So until everything's signed, sealed, and delivered, no one's going to take anything for granted.
I guess so. This is sort of the second time the deadline's been moved, sort of more recently, hasn't it? It was originally,
Yeah,
I think, the 5th of April, wasn't it? We've sort of added an
yeah.
extra month to it. Is it positive in a way that obviously this deal is sort of? It seems definitely like it's on its way to being agreed.
I think so. I think we're finally there with it being the final stage of negotiations. Of course, we had Robert Platek, the American businessman, in exclusive talks last month. Those talks broke down. Seemingly, a deal was just far too complicated to get anywhere. With Couhig still on the scene, with him holding the liens with the club, and the ongoing court case which you spoke about last time with Mr. Dye and Rob Couhig. It's all very complex. So doing a deal with anyone else other than Couhig was always going to be quite unlikely. So now we're at the stage where, every other party's out of the way. It is just between Mr. Couhig and Mr. Dye to sort out final terms. I think the fans have mixed feelings on it. I think at this point we'll just take anyone who isn't Mr. Dye and just have to deal with any issues that come the way of when Couhig owns the club. But I think there are reasons to be optimistic as well and to look forward to the future. And of course, things are going really well on the pitch at the moment. It's just the off-field stuff that needs to get sorted.
I guess you're saying there. You said sort of when it happens. Is that how it feels like? It's more of a when than an if now.
I think it is at that stage now. Yeah, I think ever since we saw that Robert Platek's deal was off the field, off the table. Sorry, I think it was a matter of when not if with Couhig, and I think a lot of people predicted it even when Platek was still on the scene that Couhig would eventually end up owning the club. He'd been very vocal recently on quite a few different podcasts talking about his desire to still own the club. From a business point of view, I think he's played a bit of a masterclass, really. He's got Dye in a corner now where he seemingly has no other option but to sell to him. I think finally it is at the stage where it's going to be completed very soon. But like I say, no one's going to take anything for granted. That the way the fans have had to deal with all of this for the last couple of years, there's absolutely no way that anyone's going to get ahead of themselves until it's done. We even had Rob Couhig at a game last year, which he spoke about recently, that he was invited by the club to go to, drum up some hype behind him buying the club and seemingly to get a deal over the line. Of course, that didn't happen that time. And I think this time the club would have learned their lesson. Well, seemingly they have, because they're trying as best they can to keep his name under wraps, although everyone knows the party that's involved. So, yeah, we can be optimistic that hopefully the May 5th deadline is met, and then we go from there.
Because obviously you touched on it a couple of times there in terms of sort of the fan response to it. What's your sense of that? Obviously being around Reading on a day to day, how are the fans feeling now with it seeming definitely a lot closer than it was last time we spoke?
I think, to be honest, that everyone is just so fed up of talking about the ownership situation. We've had this for nearly 2 years now. It's crazy that it's still going on, and that fans are having to think about these things. You should, as a football fan, be able to support your team on the field, and that should be enough, really. To have to deal with all this in the background, and I think a lot of people have suffered a lot with the stress and worry that's come about from the last couple of years, worrying about if their club will be here in the future, which is just horrible to think about. Hopefully, at least in the very short term, that is secured. That the club confirmed in their statement that the party in negotiations is going to fund the club until the deal is done. So that's really positive news that we don't have to worry about staff being paid on time. That should all be sorted now. Yeah, like I said, there's going to be mixed feelings on Kuhig because of this whole situation with the court case. But I think we have to just look at the way he ran Wickham, a very tight ship on quite a small budget, really, a modest budget, and had them in the Championship. And was pretty successful there for his 5 years there. So, I don't think Reading fans are asking for someone to come in and splash loads of money. It's just to have a stable club, and you look at the club's academy, which is absolutely thriving. And if someone could take advantage of that and then just invest a bit in the first team to have a bit more squad depth, and I think the future can be really positive.
I guess that's the key, isn't it? No one's sort of asking for perfection. It's just sort of you don't want to have to think about it, and you want just to have that solidity in behind you. And it seems like Kuhig offers that.
Yeah, exactly. It's been, I don't even know how many years, 3 or 4 years, maybe even longer, of transfer embargoes, of having to shop around the free agents market. So just to have the opportunity to go in and purchase some players would be fantastic for the club, even if it's not a big expenditure. Because, actually looking at the priority really is keeping some of the players they've got there. Because right now, I think the situation we're in, if we got to the end of the season with no deal being done, I think it'd be something like 6 or 7 first team players left in contract. So that would be an absolute disaster. So I think number one priority for when the deal is done is to make sure that contracts are extended, because Reading have some absolutely fantastic players there in the first team. And I think there's no doubt if Reading don't go up in the playoffs this year, they'll be one of the favourites for promotion next season. I think that's more than reasonable to expect. Noel Hunt's done a fantastic job with this team, and if he can have a bit of support from the ownership, then I think everyone could be optimistic that Reading can push in and around the playoffs again.
I guess finally, then, to sort of pivot over to that sort of side of things, we're recording this before Saturday's game, so we're not going to sort of talk about that. Obviously, me and Seb will talk about it in the podcast itself. But how much would promotion, getting into the playoffs, mean in general in terms of if Reading are able to do it? Because it's sort of a nice end, you'd say, wouldn't it? Is I guess the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think if you'd gone into the season and told someone at the start of the season that Reading would be in the playoffs, they'd be shocked, really, because of the off-field situation. So the fact that they're in and around there and have a fantastic chance still, of course, needing results to go their way. But it would be such a much-needed boost for the fans if they even just get to the semi-finals. A trip to Wembley would be even better. Although the club don't have great history there, it'd be great to rewrite some good history there. It would be an odd one if the club did go up, because I'm not sure they're in the best situation right now to be looking to the future in the Championship. Maybe it'd be beneficial to have another season in League One to build with some stable ownership. But at the same time, if there's a shot of promotion, you're not going to turn it down. And I think that would more than convince a lot of the players here to stay. I think even if the ownership comes in and Reading don't go up, I'm quite confident a lot of the first team players are keen to stay. On the pitch and the management, it seems a great environment at the moment. I think you see that in the results.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Andy. Not only great to talk to you, but great to talk to you in a bit happier news than when we last spoke. So thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, thank you so much.